We've all seen them. Those houses that sit quietly on the corner of the street, looking perfectly mundane, perhaps even charming. But as the sun dips below the horizon and the shadows stretch across the floorboards, the atmosphere shifts. The air grows thick, almost heavy enough to breathe, and a cold realization sets in. You aren't as alone as you thought. Tonight, we aren't talking about Hollywood legends. We are talking about the lived experiences of real people. People who still live in these rooms, hearing the floorboards creak under invisible feet. This is a journey into the unseen, a collection of testimonies from those. Our first story comes from a witness we'll call Jay. He's lived in his family home for over 24 years. It's a massive 3-story structure, but there's a specific corner on the rooftop that no one likes to visit. Even now, after all these years, there are scorch marks etched into the concrete. Marks from a fire that was supposed to cleanse the house of something ancient. But Jay says those marks don't fade, they just grow older, like a scar that refuses to heal. Years ago, during a brutal winter storm, the power grid failed. The house was plunged into a suffocating, pitch-black silence. Jay's cousin was sitting in her room, the glow of her laptop dying with the power. Suddenly, she began to scream, not a scream of surprise, but a scream of absolute, soul-shattering terror. She pointed her trembling finger at the open doorway, her eyes wide and fixed. She wasn't seeing a shadow, she was seeing her late grandfather. She kept whispering, "He's here, he's come to take me." The family tried to comfort her, giving her water, telling her it was just the dark playing tricks, but she wouldn't blink. She was staring at someone standing right there in the empty air, waiting for her. Fast forward to 2017. Jay and his cousins were up late, huddled around a board game to pass the freezing night. Around 3 a.m., the neighbor, a man known for his stoic nature, sprinted into their house, his face the color of ash. He told them he was taking his nightly walk past the vacant lot next door. He saw an old man dressed in brilliant, pure white, sitting in the dirt. But as he watched, the man began to uncurl. He didn't just stand up, he stretched, higher and higher, his limbs lengthening unnaturally until his head reached the height of the 3rd-story roof. Then, as if he were made of smoke, he simply dissolved into the wind. The neighbor didn't walk back, he ran for his life. Perhaps the most chilling moment for Jay happened on the roof. He was looking for a cell signal when he saw his cousin, Alamgir, sitting on the edge of the neighboring roof. Alamgir was hunched over, staring at a book, his legs dangling over the drop. Jay called out to him. Nothing. He threw small pebbles to get his attention. Still, the figure didn't flinch. For 40 minutes, Jay watched this figure stay perfectly still. No breath, no shift in weight, no movement of a page. The next morning, Alamgir swore on everything holy that he had never left his bed. Jay realized then that whatever was on that roof that night, it wasn't his cousin. Our second account comes from Hashir. His family moved into a new home that looked flawless, but the moment they crossed the threshold, they felt a crushing weight on their chests. It was a beautiful house, yet it felt occupied, like they were uninvited guests in someone else's living room. One afternoon, Hashir's mother was home alone. The power cut out, even the backup solar system went dead. She went to the bathroom, and seconds later, someone began hammering on the door. Violent, rhythmic knocks. Bang, bang, bang. She assumed the boys had come home early, but when she called out, there was no answer, only more knocking. She stayed locked inside, heart hammering against her ribs until the noise stopped. When the family finally returned, they found the house exactly as she had left it, locked from the inside, with no one else there. Hashir himself had a run-in with the entity. He was up late on his laptop when he sensed movement behind him. In the dim light, he saw a pale, hunched figure sitting on his bed. It didn't have a face, just a silhouette of a person in deep grief. Terrified, Hashir began to pray under his breath. The figure stood up slowly, walked toward the ensuite bathroom, and slammed the door with a force that shook the walls. When Hashir gathered the courage to check, the bathroom was empty, the window locked. A few days later, he saw his brother walk into the room while he was in the shower, only to find his real brother had been asleep in a different wing of the house for 4 hours. The final story takes us back to a childhood home filled with the intoxicating scent of night jasmine and roses. The family knew the rules. The garden belonged to the spirits at night. You don't sleep near the flowers after dark. A visiting cousin laughed at the superstition and set up his cot right in the middle of the blooms. At 3 a.m., the house was awoken by a crash. The cousin came flying through the front door, white as a sheet. He said his bed started bucking like a wild animal before an invisible hand flipped the entire heavy cot on top of him, pinning him to the ground. Then there was the uncle, a man of logic and bravery. During a morning walk in the center of a completely empty, sunlit alleyway, he was suddenly struck, a violent, stinging slap to the face. There was no one around for miles. He stumbled home with a high fever, and when he looked in the mirror, 5 red, angry finger marks were burned into his cheek. It was a warning, a reminder that even in the light of day, we share our space with forces that demand respect. Eventually, these families moved. They left the scorched roofs, the heavy bathrooms, and the jasmine gardens behind. But the stories remain. Some say a house is just wood and stone, but these witnesses would tell you otherwise. A house is a vessel. It holds the prayers, the tragedies, and the lingering shadows of those who never truly left. So tonight, as you head to bed, pay attention to the silence. If you hear a floorboard